things I was actually starting to say, here we are, Lord, send us. Here I am, Lord, here we are, Lord, deliver us, Lord, help us to believe and depend on your word to see us through. Morning's lessons coming from Haggai, chapter 1, verses 1 through 4, 7, 10, and 12 through 15. The lesson topic, I was talking about. Lesson topic, the temple rebuilt. Say amen, we have it.
Amen.
Okay, all together, aim for change.
By the end of the lesson, we will explore why God withheld his blessings from his people, 7 times when our own ambitions are contrary to God's plans for us, and decide that we will do exactly as God has commanded.
Anybody want to break this down and how it's going to apply to them? Okay. For me, I guess the personal side of it is for why God withheld his blessings from his people. Last year when I was out of work, it was 3 months, and at that time that God wanted to be God in my life. I was also going through the cancer diagnosis at the same time I was out of work. We had nothing. My son had just lost his job. He had nothing. I felt like God had withheld from me, but he still allowed us to get up every day. He still kept us before our head. He still kept food on the table. But it's funny because I kept saying I don't want to get to that point ever again where God would strip me of everything to let me know that God is God all by himself and that's what he did. But the difference was this time was acknowledging him more so in our home versus outside of work. We're in our home, how he wants to be Lord over everything. Yes. So that's the first part. Since time when our own ambitions are contrary to God's plan, I really don't know what to say about that. Well, like the monkey, I will go back to Jeremiah 29:11, where he says, he knows the plans that he has for you. We plan to keep the best of all plans. Yes. Yes. Okay. Because when he plans, it's a focused plan. When we make plans, somehow it falls through, something is missed, something lacks, something is overtaken. There's a whole lot of things happen when we plan. So when God is the center of the plan, it seems to work itself out. And decide that we will do exactly as God has commanded. Each and every day, I definitely feel Lord over my life. I don't just call him Lord, but making him Lord over my life. Every decision that I've been making, I've been making him Lord over my life to let him lead God and direction. And it's to decide that we will do exactly as God commanded. Certainly, obedience is better than sacrifice. Yeah. It's better to obey and follow through with God's plan for you, with you, and to you, than to make your own plans or be disobedient and see what the repercussions are. So for every action, there's a counteraction, there's a reaction. And we don't want God's reaction when we're not obeying. We want to get to the place where God says, well done, thy good and faithful servant. Not sit down, well done. Exactly. Mr. Smith, comment?
Yes. So usually, with exploring why God withheld his blessings from his people, a lot of times we assume because we're chosen that means you're just going to get whatever you want, but that's not what it means. And to explore, I guess, to have a deeper understanding to go deeper into why. And part of that is like, personally, if you've never felt wanted, you often wonder like, why would somebody even think that much of you? You know, if I'm, just filthy rags or whatever have you, like, why would you even think anything of me to save me? So you start to understand the relationship that God has with Israel, but it doesn't excuse their behavior. And then to get a sense when our own ambitions are contrary, I think it's like we make goals and plans, and then when things don't go the way that we desire for them to, sometimes we try to talk them like, oh, what's for me, but it shouldn't just be that blank statement. We should always ask God, what is it that you want for me in my life, and also to yield to what God says. Because you can ask God, and in His permissive will, He may say yes. But overall, just like how Jesus said, not my will, but thine be done. So like we have to get to the point where we're not trying to make plans that supersede God.
Exactly.
And then to decide this morning message to make that choice. Because now you know right from wrong. And it's up to you to make that choice. Are you going to follow after God, or are you going to be contrary to that?
Exactly. They're going back to what I said, the first stuff, obedience is better than sacrifice. Mm-hmm. So many times we talk about what we do for our job, what we do for family, what we do otherwise, but when it comes down to God, there are all kinds of excuses. Why we can't do this, why we can't do it, why we and all the excuses we nail to the cross. So things all nailed to the cross, they put them on the cross. That's what the excuses went. So there are none. He said, here I am, Lord. Use me for your service. Use me however you decide to use me. I'm going to introduce you for service. Fill me like I never before. Make yourself available. He says, come to the broken contrite spirit. Or he says, better yet, I can go better. Some of the little children come with the attitude of a child. Not with the funny attitude of I know better, I think better. You can't have that Holy Spirit. Don't go back to child. Lord, here I am. Do with me what your will is. Not my will, but God, as you said, thine will be done. Because we think so, I don't understand it. A lot of things we wouldn't apply ourselves to, a lot of things we would not accept, a lot of things we would not even have on the address. But we get to the place where I've been in church all my life now. I know better than this. I'm scared of those people that think they know it all.
When we're talking about becoming like a child, I just kind of thought about growing up as a kid. When someone asks you to do something, your reaction and response was not to say no. And in fact, you were excited that somebody asked you to do something. And as a child, like when you were included and involved in things, not grown folks' business, but when they say, oh, can you help me do this? Can you help me do that? You were excited because it's like, oh, you're asking me to do something? And I think that in a way that's part of what God is saying when we need to be like children, that when He says, I need you to reach out to this person, I say, God, why are you picking on me to go out to talk to this person? But you're like, oh, you're asking me to do that? And how do I do that? What do I do? Like, to be inquisitive and to
hold that third time to His right.
there's like when kids, they want they want to be acknowledged, but there's a way that they behave that when you ask them if they want to participate in something, it gives them joy to be a part of it, to be included. And just thinking about that would help. I would say, I guess, frame my mindset when I'm looking at how to become more like a child. In that aspect, that when God is asking you, He's never going to ask you to do something that He would not do, or that has not done.
Amen.
I was going to say, also being like a child, kids have dirty faces.
Yes.
You know, they wasn't afraid about drowning. They jumped in the water, started swimming.
Oh,
They
they were.
wasn't afraid about too much of anything except for getting spanking.
Mhm.
Otherwise, they believed, their belief was strong. And if their parents say, you know, you do good, I'm going to do yourself in. That's just like God. If you be obedient, I'll bless you. And they got excited and they wanted to be good and they wanted, like you said, to be acknowledged. They
Yeah.
wanted.
And they yearned after it.
Exactly. Kids have great faith.
If only we as adults, when you get to that emotion again, say, why am I thinking that it's something that's new to me?
Right.
Why am I thinking, as I often say in here, that it's entitlement syndrome.
Right.
That God owes something. We owe him a debt that we can never repay.
Everything.
But then we got to get this to school. We think he owe us something. It's just the opposite. And if we come as little children, the outcome will be totally different. The way we see things will be totally different. So those that think they stand 2 feet lest they fall. You think you up on the mountain, but really you down in the basement. Humble yourself. And that was a beautiful word for the year, to be humble. Because it's hard for people to really commit themselves
To lower themselves.
to commit themselves to even to acknowledge that they're beneath a situation or I'm not even saying beneath. Get to the place where they feel like I'm not too haughty, I'm not too uptight or too whatever, that I can't surrender to the God that created me. I can't surrender to whatever the thought process is. Just being a doorkeeper, whatever door, like you said, being asset, not a liability.
When you mention being humble, it's you don't want to become like Satan because Satan was not humble. He had to be humbled by being cast out. And even then, that pride took him so far beyond it that he doesn't even see or maybe even understand the stature of how lower his sense of self is. And we use that as an example to not become like that. So you have to be humble because once you lose your humility, then you want to align yourself with Him and say, I want to be like God. You can't. That position is filled. And you have your role to play. And if you're not humble, being humble comes across a lot of different places. You have to be humble. It's a necessity because once you lose that humility, your ego is out the window. You burn bridges. It's necessary.
Big time. And it's not just humble, it's more important to be humble to God. It's just as important to be as important is to be humble to those that have rule over you. So you say, you honor me, you're honoring me. Too many times people feel like, they say, for instance, that's not my boy. I feel it's because of my age. They owe me something. I'm older than that. They got to owe me. No, they don't want like that. Respect is due where respect is given. And God placed people in position for a reason. It's not by your age, it's not by your knowledge. Because He knows what we can do, what we can do. He said He knows our thoughts are far off. He knows us more than the hair on my head. Let alone the being that we are because He created us. Our parents are just the vessels of Jesus that bring us forth. They don't even know to the extent that we do. And we have to have our own way. That's what it's called. We have our own way. Set our own mindset. Set our mind in the Christ. And we are like Him. They can have the mindset. But it's the one of God. Not the power. And that's the Christ on the face. Not the name of God. Not my Lord. But the Lord. Lord, we understand that God has a name. And so we do understand that it's different. But we don't do understand it. It's right.
But I didn't really play it a lot because at that time it came out on a different type of console. And as I began to play this game, I started getting like really angry and short-tempered, and I realized that this is not going well because I started to fall back and kind of feel like how Alex did not want to go to church, didn't want to talk to anybody, wasn't really trying to sing, wasn't really trying to, I would go to work, and then, and in my time even when I was like waiting, because the job that I had, I was taking busing the kids to school, so in the time that I had when they were being dropped off, I was constantly like going back onto the gate, and putting it down, and then aging it, like as soon as I, was able to sit down for some time, and it got to a point where it was occupying my thoughts as to when was I going to be able to play this game. And I would dream about playing the game, and I would get angry, and I noticed that the more that I was driving out on the road, that it started to affect how I felt, because in that game you'd be driving. And at some point, I think my mom, she was like, I think you spend a lot of time on your phone. And I'm just like, yeah, I try to use it as a stress reliever. And she was like, yeah, no, you seem to be a little bit more angry and you got to be mindful of it. She sat me down and we had a conversation about it. I didn't realize that just playing that game because I wasn't even getting enough sleep. That while I'm sleeping, that it felt like the game was calling me like, hey, get up and play the game. So 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm playing the game before I have to get out on the road. That's ridiculous. As a grown adult to say that, but that's just like the power of like mindset. Like when you're in that mindset, it wasn't really something that was giving like keeping me stress free because the themes that were in this game were not Christian life. So that was a reminder for me, like when I read this, so like, you do have to get things right. Your family is important. You need to make time for God. You need to make time to do other things, i.e. live your life and not be trapped in a square portal. And I had to delete the game, but once I deleted the game, I had to go to rest. Sounds good to me. And that's the same focus God is saying to us as far as in our word, in our walk with Him, in our talk with Him, or better yet, in our relationship with Him. We should be just that focused. Not to the point where, as long as I'm in the building, it's all about God. As soon as I leave out the building, I'm going to put my Bible on the shelf and my conversation is going to be everything but about God. That's not what He wants.
For me, it wasn't video games, it was more so, yeah, that's it. Yeah, cartoons. When I gave cartoons up for fasting, I couldn't turn down the plate, because I was on medication and stuff. It was rough. Because everybody who knows me know when I come home, and watch my cartoon, I be on the phone with them laughing, and they tell me something serious like, that's not funny. I'm like, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing at a cartoon. But I guess on a serious note for me, honestly, also, it was me tired. I had missed God meeting every need that I had and that we had as a family in our home. Pastor will always say God gives seed to the sower.
Yes, He does.
And I remember I was talking to you about how I was tired like I used to. And you kept encouraging me, you kept saying again, you'll get back there, you'll get back there.
I sure did.
And I thank God for that because right now, I'm down to just the one job, the part-time job. But I'm thankful to God that I really took a leap of faith when I stepped down off of my full-time job a week ago. And because I wanted better. And the way I could do better is that I needed that time to be able to not just sow a seed, but to fast, to pray, to ask God, where does He want me to go? I have a couple of interviews lined up this week already. But had I been working full-time still, I wouldn't have been able to go on to those interviews. I wouldn't be able to get my resume updated. I wouldn't be able to put my resume out there. And I thank God that, I felt bad last week when I was telling us that I spent my time and money. And it really broke me down because, all I had to do was just set it aside and put away my selfish needs and give it to God and let Him do what He needs to do. And this time I remember this is I made
But
sure.
that's what it goes back to your word for the year. Humble yourself and say, it's not what I want, but what God commanded me to do.
Yeah.
He said, bring me your tithe, and the store I come. And when you do that,
See, when I open up the windows of heaven,
it won't have room enough to receive.
And I thank God for that because I remember, like I was telling, when I had COVID relief, how I wasn't working during that time, and I was only making $20 a day, and that was taking my mom to and from work. And I remember I was tithing off of that, and God opened up a window and blessed me with the COVID assistance relief, and I didn't have to pay my rent for 9 months. And, just like that little act of obedience, he said, little is much in the master's hand. And I gave the little that I had, and he made much out of it. And I truly thank God to help me understand that all you have to do is have faith, just trust me. If all you got is $20, give me $2 of it, or if you want to give more, give the whole thing, whatever is on your heart.
Yeah, it's required, it's just simply being obedient.
Yeah, and I thank God for that. Even I was fasting, and last week, and I had to have my hearing for unemployment, and even though they denied me again, they said I left for no reason at all, and I said no, I didn't. And my mom said, why don't you fight it again? And I said, Mom, I think that I believe right now to fight it again. I said, if that's the answer, it is what it is. Evidently, God didn't need me to have that back pay. I'm just going to move on for it. And she said, are you sure? Because you've been fighting a lot this year. And look how God is blessed. And I said, I understand that, but I just don't feel led to fight again in that situation. And I said, I'm going to leave it alone. And
You almost said, but God got it.
exactly. So, I just truly thank God, and I'm just believing God that one of the interviews that I had is back at a hospital, and I'm just believing that I was right 5 minutes from my part-time job, which means I wouldn't have to drive an hour to work or an hour and a half to work. To get there on time, I'll just be 5 minutes up the street. So I'm just, believing God. That interview is Tuesday morning. So I'm just believing God that, He gives me the words to say on the interview, and that He gives me favor. So, yeah.
To God be glory.
I was when Mr. Brent was talking about when you ended up spending her money that she had set aside for her tithes, and honestly, my sister and I, we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago when it came to tithing money, and the reality is, even in the Bible, God says, give back to Caesar what is Caesar's. This money that we have here on this earth, is God didn't print the money, we did, because we decided to take on using currency as instead of bartering. But the reason why I mention that specifically is I feel like a lot of us forget and we feel guilty when we don't have the financials to support wherever our storehouse is. But when you show up for wherever you're going for us, when we show up to this ministry and we give our time, that's still us tithing.
Yes.
And by us taking the time out to consistently come here because we're heeding to what God is advising us to do, and like how Assistant Pastor said, not leaning unto our own understanding, that is us also giving back to Him. And I think that that's also sometimes we can feel bad because we know the effects that it'll have on us as a group of humans. We understand what the effects and the repercussions of that is, but when we put brass tacks to brass tacks, us not giving the financials is one part, but that doesn't mean that you're not tithing in other ways. You're not giving your time. You're, doing your best to show up for your ministry or your church as a whole, because the world may be able to get far on money, but it doesn't only run on money. It takes more. It takes compassion. It takes being dedicated to the cause, and I think that that's something that, even though every now and then we won't be able to have, even if it's not even because we didn't want to do those certain things, how you said experiencing when you're talking about your car earlier in your testimony during our first service, about how you had times where it was almost repossessed and things like that. We go through a lot of situations like that, but I think when we honestly come to God and we seek that forgiveness for the fact that we weren't able to keep that money set aside to be able to financially help our storehouse, that it's one thing to know and not do, but if you know that this is something that you weren't able to meet the need this time, and you just, when you're praying and you say, God, I realize I wasn't able to meet the need this time, but Lord, I'm asking that you show me the way so I can meet it the next time. And just like how you said, this week you were able to stay true and keep that. I think that's the biggest thing that we have to remind ourselves of, is that He is a caring and loving God, and He's not going. It would be one thing if you're like, I could have totally kept this money to the side, but I'm just gonna go and spend it here and yon. Sometimes we think people may not understand why we feel like we have to spend certain things. Certain things, the value of certain things will be different for each person, and I think that's the biggest.
What you're saying, yes, the other thing is bring yourself, your services. That's what, like. But He also gives the command for our finances as well. That's just part of the equation. And what you're doing, praying and asking God to help you to meet that need, that's something different. But to totally overlook it and say, I'm not going to pay, because whatever you live, whatever you do, it's going to take finances with it. It's no different than the house of Lord.
No, that's what I'm saying.
No, I'm not saying they didn't say that. But people step on it and say, how are you going to maintain a house if I don't do, I withhold mine, then it's going to be a whole different. But that's not the attitude you should have as believers. God prepared us a place that we can come and worship. God prepared a place where we can sacrifice the time and the finances here. And we wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for God. We wouldn't have anything that we possess if it wasn't for God. So again, there's a debt that we have to pay, and we can never repay. Go further in the lesson, basically. The lesson topic says, triple redo. When I look at that statement, I'm not looking at it as a building being rebuilt. I'm looking at it as the individual, as people being rebuilt. We're being changed from the person we once were to the people that we are today. Every day we get closer and closer in our relationship with God. That brings us closer and closer to being rebuilt to the person that He desires for us to be, that He made us to be.
I remember when, I think it was, Moses, the building, someone had some people stop giving because they gave so much that they had more than enough and you had to tell them to stop. I thought about how, when something is God has placed people and laborers that would give to the public tax, say, okay, we got enough, we got more than enough. But just the thought of that, like, you know,
Speak there for what it is.
yeah,
Into existence.
yeah. I was thinking about that when we talked about building a temple, and I'm always trying to tell people to stop giving because they had more enough. Because they were bringing everything. They bought their time, they bought their talent, they bought their pleasure, they bought everything.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not negating the fact that you don't have or that you don't get. Because God knows your heart. Because if you're giving it, you're not giving with the right spirit in mind. There's no reason to give it in the first place.
Right.
So I'm not saying don't give or don't do what you do. I'm saying what is required to us as believers. We have, the bottom line is we're supposed to be example setters. We're supposed to be accepting examples for others. How can we tell somebody coming in, telling other people what God commands us to do or what God expects from us if we're not first partakers? Next part says, keep in mind, it says, go up to the mountain and bring wood and build a house, and I will take pleasure in it, and I will be glorified, saith the Lord. That's Haggai 1:8. That just let us know that God is well pleased when we sacrifice our time, everything we give, and we give it unto Him, not unto man, not unto our thoughts, not into our own ways. So just like this young man in the story, we can spend time doing whatever, it ain't nothing but sleeping. We can say, Lord, thank you for blessing me to sleep. I had a peaceful night's rest, whatever the case may be. And get to the point where that becomes a habit. We're making a God out of that sleep. And God is not pleased with that. So we got to get to the place where we're looking and striving to please God in every aspect of who we are. Not just our physical presence, not just in our finances, but in all aspects of who we are. Words that we should know. First word is time. That's Haggai 1 and 2. It's et, it's Hebrew, which means now or in due time. Word number 2, sealed. That's in verse 4. The Hebrew word is kafan, means to be covered. And to break that down even further, who can cover us better than God himself? Amen. So when the enemy comes like a flood, stand up. He said he'll never leave us nor forsake us. So he covers us in all aspects. Whether we have or we don't have, God is there. Well, man said, as Pastor was saying earlier, man said that after that, as soon as you need him, the phone call stopped, the conversation stopped, everything stopped. Because you're not dancing to the beat of the drum no more. You can't feed their people, whatever you was doing for them. You can't do no more. So the time has changed. But God never changes. He said he's the same today, yesterday, and forevermore. He changes not. Third word is waste. Cherez. That's also in verse 4. Means to be desolate. Can anybody explain to me what desolate means?
You are alone, forsaken, and of nobody.
All right. Word number 4, messenger. Malak. That's the bearer of news. Don't all of us want to do that? A malak.
Good news.
Yeah, good news.
I'd like to be a bearer of good news of the gospel.
Yeah. Now we're talking about saying correctly. Talking about people that are mentioned in this particular passage. Matter of fact, before we go there, Sister Francesca, can you read our scripture, please?
Oh. In the second year of Darius the king, in the 6th month, in the 1st day of the month, came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet unto Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, saying, Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying that this people, the time is not come, the time that the Lord's house should be built. Then came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. Go up to the mountain and bring wood and build the house, and I will take pleasure, and I will be glorified, saith the Lord. Yea, look for much, and you looked for much, and lo, it came to little. And when you brought it home, I did blow upon it. Why, saith the Lord of hosts? Because of mine house that is waste, and you run every man to his own house. Therefore the heaven only is made from dew, and the earth is made from her fruit. The just Lord is in the midst thereof. He will not be iniquity. Every morning doth he bring his judgment to light. He faileth not, but the unjust knoweth no shame. Then Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel, and Joshua the son of Josadak, the high priest, with all the remnant of the people, obeyed the voice of the Lord their God, and the words of Haggai the prophet, as the Lord their God had sent him, and the people did fear him before the Lord. Then spake Haggai the Lord's messenger in the Lord's message unto the people, saying, I am with you, saith the Lord. And the Lord stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and the spirit of Joshua the son of Josadak, the high priest, and the spirit of all the remnant of the people, and they came and did work in the house of the Lord of hosts their God. In the 24th day of the 6th month, in the 2nd year of Darius the king.
This is letting us know that he said he's the same today, yesterday, and forevermore. The same thing he did back then for them, rebuilding the temple, doing the things that they were doing, the same thing is required to us.
But you know what's the eye opener that people don't look at, like verse 9, you look for much and lo, it came to little. When you brought it home, I did blow upon it. A lot of people don't know why they can't save, or they can't keep $1 in their pocket, or they can't, they don't have. And I thought about, maybe it was about the pocket with holes. That's something to think about. Like, God, what am I doing wrong that every time it's when I don't have, I can't keep, or I don't have anything put away? Like, that's something really to think about. We have the wrong concept of saving. Because saving is not just for the banks, it's not just for these finance companies. Saving comes to God. Yeah. Because see, when we're doing things, as I said before, stated, God blessed us with whatever we have. We get to the place where we do with everything that God gives us, everything but gives to Him. He's going to blow on it. Every time you turn around, what you're not giving to God, you have to spend more. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You've done that. I'm a living witness to that. I can give a testimony to a pastor told me one time, I picked this week my tithe the way it was. God said, you can do better than that. And from that circle to this, ever since I've been doing just that, paying above my tithe, there's been something I don't have. But I don't feel like I should. I was looking for 10%. I don't feel like I used to do it. I used to get down hard to beat myself up because I know better, because I was taught better. And it's good to go to do and don't do what was in the front. I didn't want that. I didn't want the beatings from my parents, let alone the beatings from God. Amen. So that was something that the moment contention for me. I can't speak for nobody else. But what bothers me is certain, like it bothers me to be late. If there's little, what they call it, little idiosyncrasies bothers me. Whereas the next man might not even look at it like that, but I do. And if I can give that much confidence to a man's job, who am I to say what I'm not going to do for God? I want to be like Job, for God I live, for God I die. Get to the place where God will take precedence over everything. I'm striving for that. But getting back to the names, Sister Francesca read beautifully, even though she stumbled at the beginning, but she got it. Zerubbabel. Then there's another name talking about, what's his name? Shealtiel and Jehoshaphat. It's not so much knowing their names, as Pastor said earlier. We may have heard of them, may have read about them, but we don't know them. But we know the people that we see every day. We know the people that we come in contact on a weekly basis. How are you familiar with them? Let them know about your God. Let them know what your God can and what your God will do. And what God is able to do. Just choose my focus. Back at you. The bottom line is God is able to do abundantly above all things. And we are when we get to the place where we let go and let God, be the God of every aspect of our being, the better off we'll be. And our lesson tells us that Haggai was an Old Testament prophet and author of the book that we read from. And it's derived from the Hebrew word Hag, meaning feast or festival. This term usually refers to re-pilgrimage feast of the Jewish religious calendar. Feast of unleavened bread, feast of the weeks, feast of the tabernacles. If you look around and read through the scriptures, a lot of the scriptures have all these different celebrations. But where did you see that they actually celebrate God? Celebrating God.
You don't see it, but that's also too why God was upset with his people, because they would set aside this time of year to celebrate, to say, oh, let's give thanks to God for blessing us, and do all of those rituals, and they basically do like a Mecca, back to Jerusalem. Then after they left Jerusalem, they went right back into their pagan ways, doing those pagan rituals, which is why in the beginning when it said like the explore why he withheld his blessing, because they began to confuse God with Satan. Satan will bless you just like God will, but the difference is that it's like the difference between fake cheese and real cheese. Come on. And
the fake cheese has no substance. So when Satan blesses you, it has no substance, and they were performing these pagan rituals, sacrificing, and I think we read about this 2 weeks ago maybe, for Sunday school, when he asked them, what are you going to do, give me your, sacrifice your children to me, that they weren't even considering how, they were so caught up in the world, being in the world, and being of the world, and wanted to desire that they began to bring that stuff into it. So when they were doing the feast of the unleavened bread and feast of Tabernacles, they were also performing these pagan rituals as well, thinking that that was going to give God pleasure. And why? How do you think? And even with there was like some fertility goddess.
Yes.
This makes sense. If God gave you life, how dare you take a life to give it to Him and offer that life in order for more life? The math is not math. It's not making sense. And God does not work in confusion nor that of chaos, but He is of peace. So He, and there's a word that said that like the wicked have no rest. So if you can't possibly serve God, and the Sabbath is supposed to be the day of rest. You can't possibly serve God, because if the word said the wicked have no rest, how can you serve God and do these pagan rituals? Oh, it's not done yet. At any rate, I'll keep it very brief. But the point of it is that, like, when you start to examine, they were mixing and mingling with people who did not believe in God and bringing that into the church. And then to make matters worse, is that they wanted to, I'm saying into the church, but into the sanctuary, and then make matters worse, they just wanted to offer it to God as like a secondary thought when He chose them first.
Exactly.
So how do you treat the one who chose you first as a second choice?
Exactly. He's the giver. How dare you turn around and try to give the gift to the one that gave you the gift in the first place?
A lot of times we all do that in the we give God the rest instead of giving our best. We give Him the last instead of giving Him our first. Amen. Whether it's our children, whether it's our home, the vehicle that we drive, our jobs, everything, we give that first and don't give God His first, which is the tithing of our time, the time with Him, our devotional reading, studying His Word, spending quality time with Him, and not just putting Him first. We still do that to this very day, and it's even though theirs was more blatantly outwardly done, we do it even in our secret. Even in our thoughts. He said, our thoughts from afar.
Yes, He does.
That's why He said, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. When Jesus got up, He spent time with the Father. He thanked the Father. He did it in His secret place. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide. And it's like we do it to God since very day.
And that's why these lessons are coming forth, because we got to get it right. And how can we say we're going to help somebody else come to God if we ain't got it right first?
Right.
We got to get it in order. We got to come together. What is the word that comes out of Jesus? We're reaching for a purpose. You got to have a plan and a purpose for what we do. It's one thing to say that we're in ministry, but we're not even healing ourselves.
And that's just like even when we say that we were sympathy about being late. We come to the house of God on time, which is wonderful, but we late for work every day.
Yeah.
He said, submit yourself unto those who are really always good. So that includes both of them.
Yeah. My personal saying is, how can I say I'm going to do it for man's job? And God gave me the better job, but gave me the best job, because He get the rest of His life to teach me. And it's straggling, it's over, I get it, I can't have that attitude. I don't have that in my natural life, let alone the spiritual aspect of my being. I can't do that.
I'm working on it.
I can't.
This one, I beat everybody.
Yeah, you did.
I'm doing better, you know, it's sometimes, you know,
And
everybody learns differently.
everybody learns different, and in your defense, you know what happened? I'm not gonna say that's you, but you know what happened? Because you're the closest, you feel like, I gotta tell her. And time slips away.
Yeah.
But the further away you feel like I said X, Y, Z time to get this, you make excuses for yourself.
Oh, you know, when I worked at Telco and y'all lived down the street, do you know I was late every day? And when I say I lived down the street, I walked to work.
Yeah.
So I lived there walking distance. Just have to go down the street. I was late.
Wow.
So sometimes it takes some confidence in being that close.
That's what I'm saying.
Where you gotta do it, then time been away from you.
Get comfortable. Oh, this only comfortable. I got time. Start doing stuff. That's when you get caught up in
And
something.
then time take you.
Yeah, it is. But if you can put that much emphasis or that much point of contact with man's world, what about the world you claim to live in right now? You're not the person you used to be. You're not doing the things you or going to the person you used to do. So take precedence over that. Good God first.
If you get in the car, you just drive. Or two things for the department, just clean and drive, and you drive. That's your taxi all the time, and we can listen. But you know what, I do understand about the driving thing. I be trying, but you do. Because I do be trying, because sometimes it's so serene, this feeling of, if you're not cutting out that are in your mind. You know, or praying for, I'm gonna say praying on cars that are in your way. How about I say it that way? Okay, because I thought about you one time when I was just driving, because I just was driving and thinking and praying. And that's what I do in the morning. I'm in the car at 4:45 a.m. And I normally will get on the phone to your pastor and talk to him on my way in. But I wasn't getting that a lot of time. So I don't call pastor until I take good night on the team. Once I get on the team is when I actually call her. So I get home maybe 20, 30 minutes to just drive and listen to music. I talk to my mother, I talk to God, and then by that time I get the team and I can talk to God. But it gives me that time to serenity. Girl, I don't know what she'd be like on the back of a motorcycle or something. And the reason I say that is because I was just explaining to the pastor the other day, the serenity, and I would never want to drive a motorcycle, but I had been a passenger on a motorcycle at 110 miles per hour down 287, and just looking at the sky and just enjoying the serenity. And I just mind blowing about the motorcycle. You got leather on, you got bandana on, you got helmet on, and you got watch today, so you don't burn the keys, this, that, and the other thing. But once you get used to it and you can just sit back on that bicycle, just look in the sky, just look up at God, and just see the serenity and the beauty in the world. Because you're not thinking about all the negative stuff when you're sitting there looking at the sky and the sky down the road. You don't see those troubles. Yeah, and it dawns on me like this why when they get in there. See, the difference between me and you is I can't get into the serenity that much because I get lost in the UPS. So I really can't just drive if I go to London.
Well, we're gonna have only question for this morning. We'll be closing out. The question is, why do you think God was so faithful? And how is he faithful with us?
Because God knows when He created. God knows when He created. He's patient because if He wasn't patient, He just had to kill us all. He really would. He would just have to kill us because, one, He doesn't work in our time. That's how we do. He does his job. He does it all by himself at his own time. The way it's not denied. He's waiting because He's
They're cute. Or maybe you can get a shoe that looks pointy, but on the inside has like.
Ooh. You don't gotta shop at the same time. That's the thing that is. I put you in as doing a walk. You know you brought the sunshine every day.
How is somebody over here for like?
Why not have y'all at the pastor while the table on the corner?
That's what Nikki tried to.
Tried to tell you.
Nikki tried to tell you when you came in that we weren't done.
I got this in here. I didn't hear that. Turn your camera off. Yeah. Turn the camera off.
Weren't you sitting here as well?
Okay, sisters, for the next thing about.